How important is originality? And should you be panicking if you feel like your style doesn't have any originality? So I guess it's no secret that most of our favorite players do have a certain amount of originality to their style. Not necessarily all, but many of them do. And there's a reason for that, right? We tend to notice things that are new to us, and most of the time, new things are also original, unless you've been, living in a cave or something. um, but I said that there are some exceptions, and I think that notably, there are some really good players whose, only or the biggest achievement is the fact that they have such a width. So they can play all styles, but they haven't really invented a new style. Now, whether you think that's good or bad is up to you. I mean, I personally love listening to, players like Guthrie Govan who, have this amazing mix of styles. And it basically becomes a new style at the end of the day when you mix that many elements. And I think that is, part of what you have to understand is that almost nobody invents anything, right? It all comes from somewhere because that's how we work as human beings. We start as toddlers, most of us do, and we look up to how adults and other people are doing, and we try to replicate what they're doing. And so our first years is totally gonna be a matter of copying other people. Not necessarily, other people's playing, but how other people behave. So it's in our nature to copy other people's styles. So whenever a guitarist comes out with what seems to be a totally new style, you can be 100% sure that that style is just going to be a blend of many other people's styles. But in the mix, you can certainly add new ways of looking at things, new ways of combining things, and that is going to render your style more or less original. So a lot of times when we, like SRV, most people would argue he was, very unique, and I personally love him. But you can really tell where he took his elements from, right? He borrowed from high gain rock, and he borrowed from blues, and he played it flawlessly. He combined it flawlessly, and voila, you have a new style there. So all this just goes to show that, coming up with a style isn't necessarily a matter of magically just finding something no one's ever done. But in most cases, it's just a matter of, working really hard and combining your influences. And of course, the more diverse influences you combine, the better the chances you're going to end up with some unique blends and colors. And we can go back to Guthrie Govan for that. I mean, his mix of influences is just crazy, right? He combines, whatever polka jazz with the most insane Sean Lane or Alan Holsworth, like four notes shred, and obviously you're gonna get something very unique out of that. But the big question is, do you have to do the same? Should you strive for a really unique and original style? And what if you fail? A little bit of personal experience here. I've always been interested in building my own style. That's always been a main priority for me, and to the point that I very easily get bored with learning other people's materials. In fact, it's a big weakness of mine because even when I started out, I had kind of big issues just learning a whole song. I would get bored, before the second chorus. So I always just borrowed bits, riffs, licks, techniques, and approaches. And I don't know, I kind of like that because it's easier to come up with something original. But on the other hand, I really struggle to come up with something that just sounds like it's music and not just some random stuff. A lot of times I think whatever comes out of my playing is just too original. It barely sounds like something you want to listen to. So I think that approach has kind of resulted in me having to work in reverse order. I really have to struggle to come up with a riff in 4/4, you know. All my riffs are just in weird time signatures, and I never bothered thinking about time signatures, you know. As long as I can decently tap my foot to it, it's good, you know, that kind of approach. And that's fine. That's how I work. We all work differently. But I do think that for many people, it's actually the opposite, right? You start by learning songs, and you stick with learning songs for a very long time. After many years, you might start, you know, trying to put your own riffs together, or, you know, start building something of your own. And this also means you're going to be struggling probably with originality, because you've been copying for such a long time, which again is perfectly fine. You know, that's how we learn. But then the question becomes, you know, what if you can't break out of that? What if whatever you do just sounds like the last song you learned? And I mean, I think that's super common. So first of all, you got to realize it's nothing to feel bad about or be ashamed of. That's how it is for most people, right? If you want to break out of that, I think there are tools, and they relate to, I think, your routine and how you learn and how you keep yourself inspired. If your main tool to stay inspired is to learn other people's material, then you're constantly gonna be in that loop of always having someone else's material really close at hand. So one solution could be to try to find another way to stay inspired that doesn't involve directly borrowing from other people. Again, we've spoken about that before. There are various tools you can use to achieve different effects in music and playing guitar, and how effective they are going to be largely determined for. Well, your personality is going to determine how effective they are. So there are as many tools as there are different personalities. Okay, so that's just an example of something you can do. But if you feel you don't want to change anything, you just want to continue the way you do because you love playing, do you need to be totally stressed out about not having an original style? And of course the answer is a big ringing no. I mean, this thing, well, this barely looks like a guitar, but those things their main reason is to keep you happy, okay? That's their goal. For 99.9% of all people, they should keep you happy, and if they do, that's mission accomplished. So if you enjoy doing what you love and it gives you joy, then don't change a damn thing, okay? That would be my advice. The only reason why you would want to change something is because you sit down with the guitar and it doesn't work at all. If that happens, then yeah, you'd want to change something. Or if you're not inspired to pick the guitar up at all, even though you know that when you do, it gives you joy and it does work for you, then you might want to change something also. There's probably something in your life or in your playing that it's kind of a thorn in the side there, you know. There's a reason why that happens, and you can change that. But if you pick the guitar up as often as you need and it gives you joy, then don't change a damn thing. That would be my advice. Because at the end of the day, you really have to look at your end goal. Of course, if you are a professional musician and your career and livelihood, what's the word? Your income depends on you being original, then you're gonna, you know, adopt a very different approach. But I think for most people watching this, that might not be the case. It's more a matter of either you're working towards your end goal or the guitar is there as a source of joy. And I think we've covered both of these examples here. So just to remind you, if your goal is to be original further down the line, then you can kind of gently start steering towards that direction, but it depends a little bit where you are in your learning phase. So for example, if you just started out like a few weeks, months, or even a few like years ago, then you still might want to do quite a bit of copying and quite a bit of playing to records and just being heavily influenced by your favorite guitarists and bands and that kind of stuff. But the more you do that, and then the better it is if you can start gently steering away from that, again, if your end goal is to get an original style. So my advice to you is to think about what is your end goal, what do you want to achieve with the instrument, and your kind of strategy and way forward is going to be largely dependent on that. So I hope this is somewhat helpful. I'm just trying to think of topics that are really important to me, in my playing and in my creative hours. What makes difference, and these kind of things I've thought about a lot, and I think they're super important for me to be able to move on whenever I encounter a hurdle or whenever I feel a bit lost in my creative direction. And all these things are super central. Think of your goal, what do you want to achieve, then start thinking about your strategy, and you can get working on it. Good luck, and thanks for watching.